You're listening to the Wheatgrass and Champagne podcast with holistic entrepreneurs Mandi and Kathleen Hupp. Tune in each Wednesday to discuss holistic approaches to a happier, more fulfilling life and glittery distractions from the mundane. Nothing is off limits in this series, so grab your glass of champagne or your shot of wheatgrass and prepare for complete and fabulous chaos.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to this episode of Wheatgrass and Champagne. I'm loving our guest for today. I have a secret girl crush on her. It is Paige Clarke. She's a local holistic practitioner in the Dunedin, Florida, so our backyard here. And I have worked with her through some health coaches and other practitioners in this local area. And Kathleen has spoken with her at some of the community events too. And she is just a wealth of knowledge. She has over 20 certifications, anything from aromatherapy. She's a sound coach. She's done quantum reflex therapies. She's a yoga instructor. She knows about food and spiritual healing. And she just knows a little bit about everything. And she incorporates it all into her practice to help people get healthy. And today we're going to talk to her about some really cool topics.
Yeah, and we're tying it into this week's lunar eclipse. I don't know if you guys caught it, but it was beautiful, stunning. We shared a photo of it from a local photographer on our Instagram, so you'll have to go check that out. But we're just talking with her about how to get back to nature and heal ourselves and live our best life.
Yep. It's something that we keep talking about through all our episodes is, working our bodies with the rhythm of the earth. And these are free things. So Paige is going to share with us a lot of simple, basic things we can incorporate into our daily lives that are all free. So there's no reason we can't kind of take control of our health and kind of go back to those ancestral days.
Exactly. So grab your notepad and take notes.
Yep, this is a really good episode. So we're excited for you guys to hear it and connect with us. And a lot of things that we talk about will be in the show notes. So feel free to reference that and enjoy the interview. All right. So welcome, Paige. Thank you for coming and sharing all your knowledge with us today. We're so excited.
Thank you for having me,
You
girls.
are welcome.
Yay.
We've been waiting to have you on. We've been talking about this episode and talking about the moon and the sun, and it's like perfect timing with the super blood wolf moon.
And I did see it last
Did you?
night.
Did you
I
stay
stayed
up?
up. I sure did.
It was amazing.
I'll show you after the break. I took some pictures, but my iPhone is of an older generation. They didn't come out as great,
That
but
was
it really
so
was something to
respectfully
see. The last time we had a moon like that was when John Adams was president.
Really?
So I figured, I'm probably not going to be around next time. Right? Stay up, It
Not
was
looking
beautiful. It was really pretty.
What time was it, like the orangest?
I would say about 1:00.
Okay.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
I tapped out at like 11:30.
Yeah, I had to keep watching little YouTube videos to keep, here's another 10-minute one to keep me. But I went out there in stages to see it. When at first it eclipsed. Mm-hmm. And then after it reached almost like the eclipse, it turned beautiful orange. And there was a darkness to the night.
Yeah, it was
and
so beautiful.
it was something that you've only seen like in movies.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's cool. It was worth staying up for.
I dragged my husband out there and he was like, it's so cold. Come on, let's go inside. I'm like, you can go inside. I'm staying.
I know. I was going out like every hour just, for 1 minute just to look. And then I tapped out.
Did
It
you?
was too weak, an hour and a half short. Darn it.
But you gave it a good college try.
I did like a really good releasing session with everything going on with my healing and everything going on. I wrote down everything I needed to release from my life, from bad habits to relationships, different things. And I read it out loud to the moon, and then I burned it and just sat out there. And it was so beautiful. Just the crisp cold night. Cause most times in Florida, it's hot and humid. So it was a totally different sensation to sit under the moon in Florida and it'd be crisp and cool and bright. And it was so invigorating. Absolutely.
And we were lucky enough to have a clear sky to see it.
Yeah.
I
There were a
know.
couple of clouds passing by, but they were moving fast.
And that just
I loved
added to the drama of it.
Yeah,
it
it was,
was so beautiful.
I loved it. Well, so I'm excited. We're going to talk a little bit more about the moon and everything. So we'll dive into that. But I want to start with, have you always been interested in holistic health and healing, or did you have a past career life?
Well, both,
Oh.
actually. I was always a little concoction person, as a child, very interested in nature. My like I told my mother, my bestest things were, little pieces of bark or little leaves I had caught or that kind of a thing, or parts of bugs and everything. Honestly, I was always kind of that way. So I've always had an interest in nature and how we could work with it. But I actually did have a different life. And when I went to college, I've always been a creative type person. I'm very right-brained, and I was going to go into architecture. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, someone kind of discouraged me. It was sort of sad, and sometimes I look back and wish maybe I hadn't been so easily discouraged. So I did what most people do. I got a business degree.
Oh, really?
And I went to the University of Florida, and I was a good student, and had a great time there, and did well. Ended up being recruited by the 3-letter computer companies we probably all know.
Yes.
And spent my first couple of years working in that field. And one of my accounts was the health maintenance organizations. They're definitely not, HMOs. They were just coming about. And I remember telling one of the CEOs, I said, wait a minute, I just figured this out. You guys don't do anything about health. He goes, no, we're just maintaining costs.
Oh my gosh.
And that kind of retweaked my interest in natural medicine. And from there, I ended up leaving there and going to work for a major laboratory company that you probably all have visited as well. And I was their director of marketing, and enjoyed that for a bit. And then with my children and my third one coming along, I kind of fell out and got into real estate and the mortgage business. And then I kind of crashed with that when a lot of people did in 2008. And it was really at that time that I said, I really want to pursue what I feel passionate about.
Right.
And I think we all know that we are happiest when we're doing our passions.
Definitely.
Well, for about a year or so. And it was really a little bit of a health challenge. I don't know if I told you. Maybe can I share that with you too?
Yeah, please share with us.
Yeah, it was about the same time. And it was a very stressful time for all of us in 2008, with what happened. And it really upset a lot of people's lives. And I did seem to kind of have a fibromyalgic type of scenario going on. I never really had that diagnosis, but knowing what I know, I was able to put some things together that caused me to really kind of try and figure out what was going on. I was just very tired, very exhausted, very achy. And I used to think, if this is what it feels like to be 40-something, I don't think I'll make it, much older.
We always attribute it to age right away.
Exactly. But I connected some dots with doing some reading. And I realized that, and this was the last time I had an antibiotic. I had been traveling, and I got like a little lung pleurisy type of thing going on. The doctor gave me a antibiotic that is fluoroquinolone based. And anyone who knows me know that I'm very passionate. There's groups on Facebook. The fluoroquinolones are your Cipros, your Levaquin.
Very scary.
They're a very dangerous drug, and it's worth talking about on a whole show because they really deplete the mitochondrial magnesium in our
and
cells.
there's lawsuits right now going on with those.
Huge. And the interesting thing is people don't always connect the dots because they often have the symptoms 6 months after they took the antibiotic. They don't put it together.
Right.
But it creates tendon damage. And that's exactly what had happened to me because I was unloading my dishwasher, girls, having to support my elbow to put a glass up on the shelf. Because it was
and that's not normal.
And it was my elbow tendons that were in such pain. And that's really when I turned. And then I became a serial certification collector.
Yes.
And it actually started with my yoga certification.
It started with yoga.
Yeah, and I studied with a wonderful teacher here locally. I don't know if you all know Allie Ford.
Oh, yes.
Yes, yes.
She is awesome.
Yeah. It was such a great experience. And then from there, I just kept accumulating. And in 2011 or 12, early 12, I decided to open my first office. And I opened it up down in Bel Air Bluffs.
Okay.
And then when the space opened up in Dunedin, I found that. And I've been in above the chamber and delightful downtown Dunedin for about 5 years now.
I love that. The story itself is just like amazing because you can have a whole career already built and then find your passion and switch gears. I think that's just such an inspiration because I think oftentimes when we recognize our passion, we think of our past. We're like, well, I've already done this career, 15 years and I can just finish it out, right? Just another 10 years. But if you don't align with your purpose and shift and change, then you're not going to find your happiness. So I love your story where you went from something so business.
And it was computers, selling mainframe computers. And people laugh at me because, I mean, keep in mind, this is really, I really don't feel like I'm that old, but quite frankly, when I was selling these computers, PCs, I was there when the PCs first came out. I mean, we had cell phones that were the size of bricks, right?
You were cutting the ribbon.
Yeah, we were cutting the ribbon, exactly. And they really didn't want us. We had dumb terminals on our desk. We didn't have PCs. So I came about in the computer industry. I had to sell computers that took up this whole room, but they were not as powerful as the cell phone we use today.
That's wild how fast that progressed.
Really.
And the same thing's happening now with your whole career with like the naturopathy. Like people are just starting to get wind of the alternatives. And so you're able to be impactful in this space too now and educate people and see it kind of flourish as well.
Absolutely.
Kind of cool.
And you ladies too. You're all part of that too.
Oh, we're all about it. So, well, in this office that you have now, are you touching on all of your certifications?
I use them. It's kind of I call it a creative fusion of ancient wisdom and modern science. I love to study and learn what's really going, particularly mitochondrial health, because everyone's chasing down the wrong DNA rabbit hole. Everyone thinks, oh, it's just your genes. Well, quite frankly, no, it's not. I mean, less than 10%, and I would go as far as 2% of genetic disease is the cause of disease, where your genes. It's your mitochondrial DNA, a whole different DNA, and that's influenced by environment. That's epigenetics. That's your light, your cold, your temperature, your emotions, everything pulled together.
Yeah.
And so, yes, I do. When I see people, I consider my visits educative and directional and empowerment. That's why I call it health and healing empowerment. I really like the ideology of words. Empowerment means I am powerful, whereas government means to control the mind. Empowerment means I am powerful. So I want people to remember they are powerful.
That's awesome. And encourage their own healing.
Yeah. And it's very different from going to see like your general like primary doctor or something. And you go in and it's almost like the doctor has all the info and you're just kind of there to like be told what to do. But like for your situation, you're like empowering your clients to be like, okay, let's see what's going on in your life and have some back and forth, right?
Really, that's really a great way to say it, Mandi Rose, because I'll tell you what I have found, and I purposely, at this point in my life, I wasn't going to go back and get a medical degree, and I want people to be able to get the information. So they go get their lab work, and I'm like, get it any way you can. There's a lot of people getting into functional medicine, and it's costing you an arm and a leg in functional testing. I'm like, go wherever you can do, but view me as a consultant. Look at me as part of your team. And what I've realized is most people can see their doctors. If they go with their insurance, they get the test. I steer them what they should get. And then I say, okay, now let's work on it. And if they tell their doctors they're working with a health coach, sometimes the doctors are a little offended or feel threatened or apprehensive. You always empower the physician.
Absolutely.
And I think a lot of times once they realize that you're there in a joint effort to help the person get better, then it works out okay.
Right.
I always say like the health coach, like I'm your cheerleader. Like I'm just here to be your cheerleader. So whatever you kind of feel intuitively, we have to go along.
Exactly.
We're going to cheerlead. So your kind of specialty and where you're at right now is a lot of the chronobiology, right?
That's what turns me on.
I love it.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
So for someone who doesn't know the term chronobiology, for a lot of our listeners, they're like, what did she just say? Can you kind of break it down? So that
like I said, I like to break down the words chronobiology and circadian rhythm.
Yes.
Those two kind of the same thing. We have a chronos, meaning time, and biology is life, the time of life. And it's really realizing that we do have a time, and when we get in sync with nature is a metronome. They are to remind us how we should evolve so that we can be our healthiest. And I have found that people are much happier because it kind of gets them back into focusing and connecting with nature. And many times their problems will sort of dissolve because they're losing track of this artificial cycle that we get in. You ever seen those cartoons that show how disconnected we are?
Yes.
And I can't remember that guy. He's like a stick figure, and then he picks up something, then he walks through a garbage dump, and then drops it, and then it's like everything is so appalling the way we've become like machines. And it's one of my mentors is Dr. Jack Kruse. Dr. Jack Kruse, we call ourselves mitochondriacs. I'm actually have a website that I'm going to come out with when I get done traveling and decide to focus on it. Mito Maven. I want maybe girls that want to work with me to help people understand that we really need to empower the mitochondria. But Jack Kruse says you can't get well in the environment that made you sick.
Right.
That's so true.
That says it all right there.
Yeah.
You've got to remove yourself and get back to nature.
And that's really what it's all about. We've all gotten away from Mama Nature. And she knows best.
Mama
really
knows best.
That's right. That's right. So when we get into the chrono and circadian, now that's the fun part, is as we engage with nature, we respect some of the signs she's trying to show us. And I always use this to get people's attention. We talk about food. And, I sit back now and I see how people kind of have their little opinions, this is the only kind of food and this is the way to eat. And I consider myself
diets.
Beyond that now. I'm just so over it.
Yes,
I'm like,
me
eat whatever
too.
you want. I really don't want to fight
Listen
with
to
you.
your body.
Listen to your body.
body.
Intuitive eating.
And actually, I think you will be steered directly. And also look at the history. Like in reality, is it likely that a person from Boston is going to be able to eat a banana in the winter?
Right?
Are there really banana trees in Boston in the winter?
When was the last time they saw one?
Yeah. Right. No, in the world today that we have, the artificial world that we have, the bananas are shipped everywhere and people are eating tropical fruit. So when I see some of my clients that maybe are a little more of the vegetarian or vegan persuasion, and perhaps they're having some Vata symptoms, they're kind of flighty and not grounded. And I'm kind of like, hey, maybe you need to eat a potato and a beef roast.
I'll fix you right up.
And it is winter after all. And that's probably the only thing an Irish girl was able to eat in the middle of the winter.
That's
So I like to put in genealogy, not because your genealogy is a death sentence, but because it might give you some clues into environmentally what made you happy.
Yeah.
Right.
No, it makes
Where
sense.
you came from.
Yeah.
And that's with like the chronobiology, just to kind of help break it down even more. It's not even just the sun and the moon and the lunar cycles, but it's also, like you were saying, like the seasons. It goes by the year, it can go by the day, it can go by the moon cycle. So there's all these different rhythms that are kind of happening simultaneously, right? So we're like doing things for like our lunar cycle with our menstrual cycle, but then
Right.
we're also getting up and sleeping by like the 24-hour cycle. But then
You
we're
have
also
it.
eating based on summer and winter, right? And the winter is warm and spicy foods to kind of heat us up, and the summer to keep us cool, like cooler foods.
And believe it or
then-
not, the summer or spring, cool. And in the summer, kind of sweet to put on fat.
Yeah.
So that we'll be able to make it into the winter.
So there's so many different things. And then also looking at like the human, like aging too, right? So like the things that you would do in your early teens isn't what you would do in your 50s. So we have these different rhythms and cycles. And I love the topic because for a lot of people, they can't afford to maybe spend a bunch of money on lab work or functional testing or even functional doctors or even just supplements sometimes. So all these clues and all these rhythms give us a lot of ideas on how to live our life that can be really impactful, right? Is that something you notice?
I totally agree with you. And the other thing is, kind of remember that saying, it takes a village?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, tribal wisdom, this was shared. This was knowledge that was shared and passed down. So I think that that's a really great approach to think that you can learn a lot. And one of the things I say to a lot of my clients, because I use homeopathy remedies, and what I love about them is they're safe and they're effective and they're intelligent. And I call it like a computer program.
Right.
And they know if there's an excess, well, it's going to encourage your body to get rid of something. And if there's a deficit, encourages your body to remember how to do it. And I think, so sometimes I say to my people when they're like, I can't get all that lab work. I'm like, well, what's the diagnose? you got an energy problem. We've got to support your mitochondrial health. We need to get you in cycle. We need to get you in sync. We got to turn off that TV at 1 o'clock in the morning. We got to see the sunrise. Do you realize how many people never see the sun? They literally get up, they get dressed, they walk out the door, they get in the car, they drive to their office. They're in the office till 5 o'clock. The sun's setting. They don't acknowledge it, and that's your clock.
Yes. It's
And
ridiculous.
I have some guide me here because that's That's
I
my
would love to
passion.
talk about the sun because you always say the sun is the best doctor. It's like
Yes.
the best healer.
It is.
And I know Kathleen and I, like, we are so passionate about like being out in the sun, right?
Oh, yeah,
Like
it
you
just
make an
feeds you.
effort almost every day.
And it doesn't have, it's using common sense. I mean, our tribal mamas would say, hey, you don't burn yourself. You work up what we call a solar callus.
A solar callus. Oh my gosh, I love that. It's true because every summer you like your first time being out in the sun in the summer, you don't want to burn, right? But then like by midsummer, you're like out there all day.
Yeah, and there's no wisdom in burning. I mean, that's painful,
Yeah.
and it isn't. But let me tell you, let's just run through it. Is it
sun.
cool? Let's just run through a morning, okay?
Yeah.
Ideally, we wake up a few minutes before sunset. We get some water with lemon. We get some tea. Maybe tea in the winter, right? Maybe water with lemon in the summer. And we see the sunrise. And we like to call it, get your download. The sun is there to send you vital information. And preferably be as naked as you can. So in the winter, it's going to be sunny and cold or sunny and hot. But either way, all of your skin, we have just found out through research in mitochondrial health that in addition, we have melanopsin receptors not only in our eyes, and we're going to talk about the importance of making melatonin and the, not getting too much detail, but some of the fat-soluble vitamins A and D, they're all very important in our health. And we have melanopsin receptors in every inch of our skin.
Wow.
So you're seeing a lot of women with melasma on the skin. You're seeing vitiligo skin issues. We're not using the sun properly. So you get out in the morning and you watch the sunrise. Well, guess what happens in sunrise? During those few hours, forget about vitamin D for a second, girls. We're not talking about making vitamin D right now. We're talking about important information that's important for the sun beyond vitamin D. We're talking about nitric oxide. When we get sun and the UVA spectrum in the morning, one of the things we're doing is we are bringing nitric oxide, helping our blood vessels expand so we have good circulation. What that also does is helps us to protect us from burning when the UVB rays come. The creator kind of knows what they're doing. Makes it so it protects us. The other thing that happens is that is a chronobiology signal that when we get our skin exposed to that early morning sun, that says roughly 12 hours from now, you got to start thinking about making melatonin. So we know how important rest and relaxation is at night for healing. Well, we don't release our melatonin unless we get the signal from the sun. What do we have an epidemic of?
Sleep problems.
Sleep problems.
Lack
Because,
of it.
and granted, we know, and we've got some little tricks up our sleeves that we like to use to help encourage melatonin. But you'll learn a little bit more about my hormone philosophy is that if we replace, then we interrupt the feedback loop. And to turn off the feedback loop means to tell your body, there's, I really kind of am a little wishy-washy on that. We'll probably go into it more, but you can get depleted, I know personally, with stress. But long-term, you want to help your body make its own.
Right.
And so I feel it's really important. People that have anxiety and have a dopamine issue, the sun makes our dopamine in the morning. That's when we make our happy hormone.
Early in the morning.
Early in the morning.
So it has to be so the sun comes up.
The first 2 hours.
2
Look,
hours.
some people wake up after the sun rises and then they get out there. It's still going to work.
Yeah.
Take a few minutes and look into also in those first hours, it's my belief that the sun is safe to look at and gaze at. It's very comfortable.
I was going to ask if you do that.
I do. But there's some people that, are concerned about that. And I said, well, then if the sun's right here, just kind of gaze at it, but not right at it. I like it.
Yeah.
I see the geometric shapes because, in astrotheology, the planets are actually celestial bodies that are actually sound. And they make semantics, the science of sound. So they're really making the sounds of creation.
Yeah.
And that's what we're getting. So when we get that download. So the reason that if we miss the morning sun, we're going to miss our nitric oxide, which stimulates male functionality and heart health, across both men and women, male and female sexuality. Nitric oxide helps blood flow to all those areas. It helps our heart stay healthy. We miss our dopamine. We miss our signaling, our happy dopamine, neurotransmitter. And it also, we miss the signal so that our body will flip the switch to release the melatonin when the sun goes down. In fact, I think sunrise is more important than sunsets. I mean, you see a lot of people making time for that. But if people would just make the time for the sunrises. But really, I think they're both, because both the sunrise and the sunset, that crucial hour or two before and after, are very rich red and purple hues in our light. And those are the healing frequencies, and those are the ones that we don't get so much because we now have these computers, which emit really high blue. Yeah.
Yep. Not the colors of healing.
Not the color of healing.
Okay. So in your sunrise, do you sun gaze? Well, that's kind of what we just said, but do you stare for a few seconds, and do you always have your feet bare in the earth?
I can't say I always do, because sometimes I'm just not where I can, because I mean, there's no hard, fast rules. I just want you to be there, and
and your skin will absorb it. For sure.
And have as much skin bare. So what you'll find is that many of us, when we do our DNA, which I don't know if that's a good idea to do now that I know what they do with it, but if you have already done that, or you have an idea, or you know where you're from. I mean, I'm Northern European, English, Scotch, Irish, Nordic. We have cold.
Yes.
And we have some sun, and we need sun. So really the truth is, I really love cold thermogenesis, and we teach the mitochondriacs that we're teaching people that a lot of the mitochondrial damage that we see can be corrected by cold thermogenesis. So get one of those ice packs that are felt tipped that you wrap around your neck, because this is where, right here by your clavicle, is where most of your brown fat is.
Okay.
So you put that there. Now, if you've got a cold polar splash, or you want to buy ice bags, but if you're having to do it, you got to ease your way into it.
Right.
Put that around your neck. Like tomorrow morning, I do my podcast. So when I drive to it, I will wear it on the drive down to St. Pete at 6:30. It's still dark, but I'm cold.
Oh my goodness.
That's brutal
like
wake
a very
up call.
sensitive area for me. Like if I ever have like a migraine, or like my neck hurts and they tell you to ice it, I struggle with putting ice on that part of my body.
But that is a real key signaling this area to help get that active fat going.
Okay.
But as far as the sun gazing, there's a lot of people that go in more detail about it. But my real thing is the sun gazing is important. Equally important is the exposure of the skin. So equally important is exposure of all the skin for breast health, testicular health. I mean, hey.
I've heard that.
Yeah.
Go naked.
My husband will be driving, along the beach, and he'll be like, "Oh, that would be a beautiful place to have a house." And the first thing I say is, "Well, I can't sunbathe naked there." Right. And he laughs, and he's like, "So we're going to buy a house based on the fact that you can't sunbathe naked?" And I'm like, "Yes, because it's important."
Like, "Do you want me to stay alive?"
It's important for my health. And he just thinks I'm like weird.
My guys used to waking up every morning. There I am. Luckily, we live on a golf course, and nobody's out quite that early. But we have
I was going to say lucky golfers.
Yeah, we have a hedge, so I kind of watch for them. Nice. But as I said, cold. It's all time of year. And then you're going to find that you tan better and you maintain it because you really are building that sun protection early in the morning. You're getting your happy hormones. You're going to get your sleep. And we see tremendous improvement in people's sleep.
So this is probably a silly question, but if someone is in a really cold environment and they are just like, "No way am I going outside right now, but I want the sun," can they absorb some of that through a window if they're in the sun inside?
No, I don't reckon. Well, I mean, I think light in general does help us, but no, they're not going to get the benefits. In fact, the windows, if you're driving down a highway, like in the morning when the sun rises for me, I roll it down because the sun's coming across, the bay when I'm going to McMullen Booth. And I really want the real sun. Glass eliminates some of the good frequencies that we want.
Right.
I do think that probably, a lot of people that live up north, they get a very small window of light. you know, this time of year in some places, I mean, you know, it's only really light from like 10 in the morning till 4 in the afternoon, and then it's dark.
Oh, that's brutal.
But just get out there. And
just do it.
And the key is, a lot of people will say, I just don't have time. Do you have 10 minutes? Because 10 minutes will help.
10 minutes.
I mean, and then what happens is you want to like revolve your whole day, and you're like, well, I'm not going to make any appointments till 10. You enjoy that time.
Right.
You know, and we're very lucky. You can download that app, D-Minder. Do you have that on your phone?
I've never heard of that one.
Okay,
We'll put it in the
D-Minder-
show notes.
Yeah, D-Minder is an app that actually tells you when you're making vitamin D, but it has this little calendar or little, and I'll show it to you guys after we're done, that shows you based on where you live, when the sun rises, when it sets, and what hours you make vitamin D. Well, as I just told you, vitamin D is important, but it's not the only important thing that we get from the sun. I like either side of it. Mm-hmm. So you can realize, you know, when you're going to get it. And if in certain times of the year, you can still get some vitamin D. I feel it's just as important to get this morning sun. So it's kind of like you really have to have that date. Find a way to get out in the sun, to get the different frequencies, because that's what it is. Mm-hmm. It's frequencies.
So let's say we like have some listeners. There's a lot of people that work shift work, right? Like nurses and people that work overnights, and they're sleeping at that time frame. Would it be beneficial for them to set their alarm, go out, see the sunrise, and then go back to bed to finish the rest of their sleep? Or what would be your suggestion for someone that's like on a weird circadian rhythm like that?
Yeah, well, this is the thing I will tell you. If anyone has that work schedule and they're having health issues, they need to change their schedule. This is what the research. I understand how hard it is. I have a family member that I love dearly that's been working a lot of late nights and has really struggled, but a circadian mismatch is not your friend. And maybe you can do it for a while, but long term it has catastrophic. So as far as to do that, it may help, but they're really,
it's a lifestyle.
They're not in sync, and we want to get in sync.
Did you know the World Health Organization classifies night shift work as a probable carcinogen?
That's exactly right.
Yes, they own up to it. Like it's a thing.
Oh, I could.
Yeah. No, exactly right. And that's, well, like Jack Cruz says, it's cancer on the installment plan.
Right. And that's why it's called the graveyard shift. Because it'll kill you.
There you go.
Crazy. It's crazy.
The body is designed to use the rhythm that nature and light. We're light beings.
Yep.
So if we get out of sync, if we're not seeing that sunrise, and you know, my family member, ever since she has gotten where she understands this, she's seeing a difference. And she's been able to cut her hours back a little bit more. But I really do encourage people. I know the world, unfortunately, can't operate, but I really want people to realize they probably need to make a change if they're having a health challenge based on that.
And it's never too late to make a career change. Right? We started the whole episode with that.
You can be polar opposite if you need to be.
Oh, that's right. Go back to that morning. If you're like a nurse, go to the 7 to 3 shift and get up and, a
little bit different.
Or there's actually another shift, I'd rather see people get up early so that they wake up a little bit above because they can see the sun, as long as they're getting in their sleep during the nighttime. Sleep is so important.
Your REM cycle.
Oh, absolutely.
That's when you heal and repair.
And so many people aren't getting into it because if they don't get that proper melatonin release cycle, the cascade doesn't happen right.
Right. Mm-hmm. And so there are studies out there or different research that shows there are better times a day to wake up and to do your workouts and to do your most productive work and then maybe your correspondence. Do you believe in that?
I do believe that, but I think that could become a little individual. I think following the light-dark schedule is important for health for a lot of reasons. We know it's important for mitochondrial health. And since mitochondrial health is what really controls everything, it's kind of a no-brainer there. But I think different people have different thoughts on that. There's a lot of research that says back in the 1800s, some of the great thinkers would go to sleep, but they would wake up and do their best work from 2 to 5 in the morning and then go back to sleep. But guess what time they were going to bed? Before they had electricity, for example. I always tell people, think about what your ancestors did. When it got dark, and this is a good segue into what we do at night. We talk about getting up and getting the sun for those various reasons. At night, primal man had either a campfire or a candle, and that was it. So your house should be red, the color of infrared. So you can buy red light bulbs on Amazon. You get some pretty candles. You get red, blue blocker glasses, and the world looks, is a pretty color, a rosy red. And that combined with seeing that morning sign, you will be sleepy. And you will get in sync. You'll find yourself going, it's 9 o'clock, I'm going to bed, which is where we need to be. Within an hour of sunset, we really should be going to bed.
I love that you bring up like 9 o'clock because I think with Kathleen and I, we're like in that age range, 20s and 30s. If someone in our age range says they go to bed at 9 o'clock, there's such a stigma, right? There's like, oh, you're such a grandma. You go to bed at 9 o'clock.
Do you even enjoy life?
Yeah, and that's just kind of bizarre. Like you said, how far away we've gotten from our ancestors, where we're thinking if you go to bed at what we should be going to bed, we look at that person like they're old and ancient. It's like, no, they're actually doing the best thing that they can do to live a long life.
Right.
And it is so true. It is so true. And I'm telling you, I know that everyone have to admit you do feel better. It's strange at first. And look, none of us are perfect. It's tough.
Yeah, of course.
We live in this world, but and it's like I tell my clients and I work on myself, it's really great if you can get to the point where you're doing more of your reading at night, like an old time book. And you can even, I have these little lights that I order off of Amazon that look like those little votive, battery operated. I just use in the red.
Oh, you hold it up to your book? Oh my goodness. I was wondering about that because I was like, I want to switch to the candle life, where you just have candles
at night. It's kind of a sexy environment too.
Yeah, it is.
And you can pull out the champagne.
It helps, and it helps with your relationship, and that's a big part of health too. So everything kind of ties together.
I do. I've been doing a podcast. Well, I guess you call it a podcast. Not really a podcast. It's a show. It's a news show. We're the health news for on TFNN. It's a financial news station. TFNN.com, and it's called Living a Primal Lifestyle. Nico and I have been doing the show for like 8 years. We're actually just now going to once a week instead of twice a week because the station moved to St. Pete. But I tell you, my partner, Nico, he's amazing because if he reads something, he implements it. And he and his wife, everything's like essential oils, salt candles, red light, computers are off.
Wi-Fi shut down.
Right, exactly. I really am impressed. I mean, he's really came up with the idea of living a primal lifestyle and getting back to that whole tribal wisdom. And when we pull that into our families, a lot of these parents with young kids, their kids are bouncing off the walls because they don't make them keep any cycles.
Right,
They give them their blue light tablets
all hours
all the way up till they go to bed, and then they wonder why they don't sleep. And do they ever get them in the sun?
Yeah.
No. And what do they do when they take them out in the sun? They slather sunscreen on them.
Yes, I know. It blocks all of their natural instincts.
Right. And, I'm just saying when we live in an upside down world, we have to kind of flip it upside down. And then that's when we find out maybe the healthier, better solutions, I think.
Well, it's interesting, like you were saying with the circadian rhythms, when babies are born, the first thing you're told is get the baby in a routine of feeding, a routine of sleeping, a routine of everything. And so mamas spend that first 3 months really trying to implement all these routines to get the baby great. And then what happens by the time they're 4 or 5, it's like, well, they're like, I'm exhausted. Forget the routine. Let the kid do whatever.
Oh,
and that's when and that's when they kind of almost need it the most, right? As they get older and they're developing and their mind is developing and they're really, they start going to school and they have to be more cognitive. Those are the times when they really need that routine the most. Because I know for me, and I don't know how you were, Kathleen, but in middle school, even high school, I was such an off routine. Like I stayed up till 1 a.m. Then I'd have to get up, 5 hours later and go to school and try to struggle through class. And I was always tired. And I just didn't have that regular routine from like 5 years and up. My parents were just like, just go in your room. If you don't go to bed till whenever, too bad. Like deal with it in the morning.
I was the opposite. I was really routined at that time. And then after I moved out after high school, I was like, no routine ever. And I was like, oh, wow, this is what chaos feels like. So my parents, they had some regimen and that's great. And that was good. And I didn't appreciate it at the time. Yeah. But now I see the importance of it. And I'm like, go you, mom and dad.
Yeah.
And it's awful nice for us to kind of get back to basics,
Right.
Less choices. My sister is doing this, closet clean out thing like 33 items. I can't. I don't know if you guys know what it is.
Oh,
It's
yes. You want to have a 33 item wardrobe?
Yes. And I'm like, oh my God. Well, she's talking about it, but if anyone will do it, she'll do it. And I just look at that stuff and I'm kind of like, oh my gosh, I have everything I've had for 20 years. And
Me too.
How do you say goodbye?
Corner over here.
Less is more, I think. And
It
maybe
is.
with our kids and in our life, if we get back to the real basics, grounding. And, you asked me that about grounding. One of the reasons grounding is so important is the sun is electricity, L, right? And the earth is magma or magnetism, right? Electricity and magnetism. And since we're all a torus field anyways, we're kind of completing that circuit. So it is important to be touching the ground. Ideally, be barefoot and naked in the ground.
Let the kids
All
run
areas of the
outside.
skin.
But what if we, what if we started to pay attention to what other people are doing? We focused on our newscast. We showed children in Russia, when it's cold, they have them take their school clothes off, and in their underwear, they go out and play in the snow.
That's adorable.
Because it builds their immune system. See,
Cryotherapy in a sense.
Yeah.
cold thermogenesis is much healthier for us. And really, actually, what we have found, and again, I say this, I've learned most of the mitochondrial research from Dr. Jack Cruz. I actually went to Mexico with Jack Cruz and hung out with him and a bunch of neurosurgeons. This is what I like to do.
Wow.
I hang out with people above my pay grade, but I learn a lot.
Yeah, it's perfect. Absorb everything.
And, the cold and the light together. It's, in other words, it's the temperature change and the light change. So we need the cold. When you live at the equator, then you can have all the really fruits and veggies. Okay, that's where they grow. It makes sense. But when you live in, Denmark, you're going to eat more of the hearty foods. And I mean, honestly, if you do have a dietary persuasion and, let's just say, for example, it's all plant-based. And trust me, I like my plant-based foods at the right times and in the right quantities. And but in reality, I think that we have to really realize that a lot of vegans would not have survived. We wouldn't be here if that was meant to be our diet.
That's
right?
true.
I mean, we wouldn't have survived. I mean,
Yeah.
especially when we had the colder climates where the snow was actually, down to Georgia, that, you wouldn't find a bean sprout.
Right.
So
That's exactly,
Yeah.
that's a good point.
So it really,
My
that's why almost it takes away a lot of that, dogma, and you're kind of like, let's eat with what seems like it makes sense this time of year. And guess what happens? Your digestion is better, I think. You're going to get the more nutritious food, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be more mineral rich.
Yep. I love it.
You had mentioned something on this earlier, but do you think it would be better to eat local produce or historically local things to where you live now, or to your genetic disposition, like you're from Ireland?
Right. That's very interesting. I think it's kind of has to be a little combination of both, really.
Okay.
I think that I think you have to try and see how it works on you. And I'm not sure what the research is showing. I think it's a little more where you are now, because obviously the light cycles, if you're adapted to the light cycles, we actually live in a pretty good light cycle in Florida where we live. However, we're kind of bombarded with the 5G stuff that's coming. And so we're by a naval base, and we're by a major international airport, and we're in a densely populated area. So what we're learning from mitochondrial health is these electromagnetic frequencies, the non-native, the sun being native EMFs, we want those. The non-native bombardment, along with the density of population, is the real killer.
Yeah.
So what does that tell you? You need to move out of densely populated areas, buy a farm, get pregnant, have your kids have campfires at night, and,
Have your
and
own
sunrise
chickens,
parties
eggs,
in the morning.
veggies.
and lots of privacy to run around naked.
Yes, lots of nudity.
Yeah, and I like to hope, I think that these non-native EMFs have the power to be bad, which is what I think is unfortunately the way they're rolled out. But I think they could be good. And I keep being hopeful of forces that will reprogram them for the benefit of humanity versus the detriment.
Yes.
I mean, so let's hope and pray that will be coming. But I do really feel that for mitochondrial health, as we're getting in sync with nature, we also have to protect ourselves from the non-native types.
Right.
Yeah. And before we like go into like the moon, because we've been doing sun and circadian rhythm, can we go in just like a little bit about how like the Wi-Fi and like you were saying, the non-native EMFs, how that's messing with our circadian rhythm, and maybe some tips or tricks that you would have for someone that they can implement like right now?
The hardest thing about all of this, guys, is people look at you like you have horns on.
Yeah, I know.
You know.
When I unplug my Wi-Fi at night, my husband gets so mad at me. And I'm like looking at him, I'm like, first world problems. You can't turn your computer on first thing in the morning. Really? You got to wait 3 minutes till the Wi-Fi reboots and you're cranky about it.
Right.
He thinks I'm crazy. He's like, just, the neighbors have Wi-Fi and look, it pops up. And I'm like, I'm just reducing exposure, okay? I'm doing what I can do.
Kudos to you, Mandi Rose, because what you're doing is... It's one thing, once you learn something, it's like I explained to my partner, I said, once you know something, you can really get depressed if you don't implement it. You feel guilty for your soul.
Yeah.
And so I get it. And I think turning it off is fantastic. Maybe if you want it to be less obtrusive, you could put it on a timer so he doesn't see you do it. And you go, I fixed it where it goes off.
Okay.
And you can do that. You buy one of those little cheap timers.
He uses it for his fish tanks all the time.
And then it comes on, but about sunrise when you're waking up.
Yep.
And but yes, I really recommend getting educated on EMFs, and there's so many great groups and websites, and we can share some of those sites at another date, maybe even, because I would love to. I think that's so important. I just worked here to try and fight it all. I went before our mayor in Dunedin to stop a lot of the Wi-Fi mini towers that are planned. So
is that still going on? Is that an ongoing battle?
I think we're all kind of at a disadvantage right now because the federal government in the last few years was very aggressive in getting legislation. The lobbyists were very successful in getting very damaging legislation that takes away our city's rights to protect us in the name of business. And I keep hoping that something will change, but we got a lot of bigger fish to fry. And hopefully they'll come back around and really work on that. But literally they can have them every, couple 100 feet. And if they want to put one next to your bedroom window, you can't do anything. Right. So there's people all over California and Florida, unfortunately. We have an even more strenuous one because they kind of realized they left some verbiage out. And then when they did pass the Florida one, they kind of made up for what wasn't passed in the 1996 Telecommunications Act. So, but I think all that is going to I think the truth is coming out about the dangers.
I think so.
Of EMFs, and I think you're going to see more and more that there may be some improvements. Meanwhile, what do? Well, we follow some of the people that are doing the testing on this. And when I was in Mexico last Christmas, not this Christmas, with Dr. Jack Cruz, we had a to-be-unnamed astrophysicist who works for the big telecom companies. He's moving his family to Mexico. So,
Ooh,
so just to give you an idea.
That's always
just watch what you do, not what you say.
Right.
Is what he said, And we have to, Jack Cruz just has completed his longevity farm, and he got old barn boards that were from lead-based painted barns and lined his house with them. So, people are doing pretty extraordinary things. If you're replacing a roof, a tin roof actually protects, believe it or not, or siding.
And the sound of rain on a tin roof,
Ooh.
double score.
Yeah.
Back to the ancestor days.
But I really think it's going back to an Ethernet connection for your devices. And we live in a very Wi-Fi world. So you're kind of like, well, what good's it going to do if, I'm out in the world and everyone's pinging? That's why living in an apartment complex can be really detrimental to your health.
Very detrimental, because I was just talking with someone like their
density. Remember what I said? Density.
Yes.
Yeah, if everyone has their own Wi-Fi router, that's so much in one small little space when it's like really one would honestly suffice for the whole building, with the power that they are now. But it's scary.
No, it really is.
Get out of that situation.
No, I agree with you. So what do? You don't give Wi-Fi devices to small children. They're not designed for it. You don't put them on your bodies. You keep them away as much as you can. You learn about like your iPads and your iPhone. You can get an Ethernet cord if you have an Ethernet connection. And then there's a lightning adapter, and you can Google it. I hate to use the word Google because I want to say you can DuckDuckGo it because I want to go away from Google and into DuckDuckGo.
I've never heard of DuckDuckGo.
Yeah, well, they don't. They're more of a privacy site.
Okay.
And, well, that's a whole other story later. But my point is, there's ways to use so that we can maybe take some of our uncorded devices, and then when we're at home, and because reality is when you're working on your phone or your laptop, you're really usually just sitting. You know what I mean? If you have a couple of points, I'm very lucky in that our house was built in the 90s, so the people had it wired. So, and I had no idea that I had all these Ethernet connections and Cat5 connections. So I'm getting ready to go to Fios into my house, and then I'm going to have Wi-Fi because there are people that come in, but I'm going to flip it off at night.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of I'm going to take some ownership and make things happen.
Yep.
You can also have EMF specialists visit your home and help make it safer for you.
Oh, nice.
And I've got a friend who came, his name is Brian Hoyer. You can follow him on Facebook. And he was trained at a great place in Austria called GeoVital. And he was on his way to doing Dr. McCullough's house. And I said, come over here. You're coming to Florida. You come over here.
Yeah.
And he did my house and office, and everything failed. I mean, it's shocking, though. It's really rather expensive. You have to kind of take it with a grain of salt and do what you can.
Yep.
And limit exposure. And one of the most important things to do is to make your bedroom a healing sanctuary, because it goes back to lights out.
That's what I'm working on this year.
Light blocking curtains. Take the electronics out of the room. You don't have to have Alexa in the room.
No TV.
No TV.
Nope.
Or even if you have them, just get them unplugged. And because remember, they are, aside if this interests you, but all of your devices are listening devices anyways, and viewing devices if they want. Not that,
I love that you said that, because I say that to people and they look at me like I have 3 heads.
Well,
If
they
there's
just
a camera-
they haven't used their head yet.
Yeah.
So they'll catch on eventually. But
Yes.
I know it's hard to know where to cut it off. But no, this is not rumor. This is the case.
Right.
We live in a surveillance state, and just like the book 1984, George Orwell, Big Brother. It's all
like
there.
word for word.
And but the most thing we want to do is kind of keep the frequencies, especially around children.
Yeah. Yeah. And they have those I'm not exactly sure what they are, but like EMF blockers that you can put on the back of your phone and your devices, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I need
And
to
there's
get
so
one.
many, but now there will be a lot. That's a whole big argument. A lot of the science and techie guys that are really big in the EMF movement will say, don't waste your money. None of it works. We're all doomed. They don't work because they still show up as putting out frequencies when you have these fancy counters. However, there's other people that say, and a lot of us that do energetic testing will test them, and the field tests strong. So what we believe is, remember where I said some frequencies can be changed to a frequency that's harmonious to the body.
So it just shifts
So it might be better, even if it shows still radiation, it might be better to harmonize it. So harmonize your environment, harmonize it. There will be people that will argue with me on that. But since I don't know, I'd rather harmonize than risk
Do
it.
your
nothing.
best effort.
Yeah.
And I've heard different stones too, like crystals, like Amazonite. I wear like an Amazonite bracelet when I wear my Apple Watch, which I've gotten away from wearing my Apple Watch. I bought one.
Just think how much money you're going to save.
Oh my gosh, 2 years ago I had one. I'd wear it to the gym. I'd wear it at work. I'd wear it all the time.
Do you know what? You know what this is sitting right on? The pericardium, your meridians and stuff.
Yeah. And on top of that, when my hands were at rest, where was that EMF bracelet? It was near my ovaries.
Right.
Because your hands at rest are usually in your lap or at your side. And so it's near all my reproductive organs.
It's so freeing. You don't have to buy an Apple Watch. Now you don't have to be uncool not to have one. You just say, I know they're dangerous for me, so I don't wear
Yes.
one.
Well,
No, thank you.
I think what happened is I was so excited when I got it that I didn't notice, like I'm very in tune with my body. So when I first got it, I was just excited to have it. So like every time I got a text message or a call, I was like, ooh, and I wasn't paying attention to my body. Now, after 2 years of wearing it, I no longer wear it. And sometimes I will wear it at work because we're not allowed to have our cell phones. So I'll wear it for maybe like 4 or 5 hours at work. if I do not remove it immediately at the end of my shift and I wait till I get home and it's now 9 or 10 o'clock at night and it's still on my wrist, I get like heart palpitations, anxiety.
Well, you're on the heart meridian.
I feel so off. And
do you wear it on your left arm because your
left arm?
Yeah. Okay. So.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, it really is doing something. And so I'm like, I'm done. We're done with this.
Sell it and buy yourself some sexy blue blockers, because I was going to tease you. I was going to tease you when I first started knowing you and stuff. I would see you on all your cute posts because you're so good, and I would say, I got to go grab her. And I think I might even said to you one time, take those sunglasses off.
Yeah,
because that's the other thing I didn't say. Sunglasses are no good.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, doctors and eye doctors, those of us that are in this, talking from brain surgeons, I think they're pretty credible. You want the sun, and you want your eyes to get the signal, because the sun is constantly giving you a clue as to what the chronobiology is.
Yeah.
So think of all the money you can save. You don't have to buy Versace's or anything, and you can take them and then you can sell your Apple Watch and all that, and then you can go get blue blockers from my friend Matt Maruka, who is this doll baby 19-year-old guy who's now hanging out with all the neurosurgeons and the mitochondrial researchers, and he's got his own blue blocking line, and they're very nice.
I'm going to have to look into these.
I'll give you a coupon for him.
Oh, please do.
I need some blue blockers in my life. I think that is
Raw
like another
Optics.
little missing piece that I don't
Raw
have.
Optics, like rawoptics.io is his website.
Okay,
and
we'll put that in the show
And
notes,
he's
too.
great. Yeah, he's great to follow on Instagram, because he's really, his goal was, he had ADHD, or what do we have an epidemic of? It's a light disorder. And, he's a sun gazer, a sunriser. He doesn't miss it. He's attached at the hip with Jack, and Jack is very supportive of his work. And he was actually maybe going to come and work because he was going to go to New College in Sarasota. And I said, good, you can work out of my office. Because I thought he's 19, well, he's 20 now, I think.
Wow.
He's just a cutie and so smart.
Ooh.
And breaks this down on both his Instagram and to young people of how to learn what Jack presents in crazy documents, which we love Jack, but you have to be ready to dive in. He wants you to have skin in the game. He wants you to pull it away. But Matt does a great job of very intelligently explaining it too. So
when you wear blue blockers, do you wear them only at certain times a day? Can you wear them all day?
Yeah, well, there's different ones, but the most important ones that you get are the ones that block all the dangerous blue light frequencies at night after the sun is set. So after the sun is set, when it's gotten dark or you're in artificial light, like a mall at night with the fluorescent light, what's that saying to oh, by the way, all of your hormone cascade. How many women do we know that are hormonally imbalanced? Used to be just women in my age in their 50s.
No,
now
every female, I think, has a hormone
a lot
imbalance.
Of girls in their 30s. I mean, when you're in these blue light, fluorescent light, your body, and it gets really weird. But it's like Jack says, what did we find out in December or November of 17? That we have melanin, the same thing in our eyes, and the retinal we have in our skin. So if you're sitting there in the winter in a tank top in front of your blue lit TV at night,
Oh gosh,
your skin is picking up the blue light. What's it going to do? Oh, don't release any testosterone, don't estrogen, everything. Oh, no.
Hold on to it.
Yeah, everything's stopped. Oh, and that's when you release your testosterone is in the morning in the early red light times.
Ooh.
Well, do you think what you just said, do you think that's part of the infertility problem that is with almost everyone right now?
Yeah.
Circadian mismatch.
Okay.
We live in an artificial world.
Yes.
And I think if families got into a more simple life, you see, this is the thing. It's not all about the food. And everybody wants it to be. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know about you, but did you turn on your computer like at the New Year's and everyone has their New Year food or drink?
I feel like this has definitely been like the decade of food.
Yeah, food. And I mean, I even, I've been guilty of that too, but I think food quality is very important. Mm-hmm. But I mean, quite frankly, I truly believe we could be breatharians and lightarians if we, we're that spiritual.
Yes, you get so much energy from the sun, like sun gazing and just being out in it. I mean,
energetically.
Yes.
Well, and that's maybe even a topic for another time, because one of my passions is astrotheology and the whole, and that's another big cycle, like the big, Mayan cycle, but it all ties in. But the reality that that we really have a bigger cycle that we need to be part of, and that's very interesting stuff. We'll get into. It's too much to touch.
I know we
tonight.
have a list, like just from today's episode, we have a list of like 5 new episodes to have with you.
I love it. This is actually very relaxing.
Isn't it
Yes.
nice? It's girl chat.
You guys
but-
don't know how comfortable we are. We got these big cushy
Yeah,
chairs.
I know. Cushy and
We got the
comfy.
plants and some natural light coming in.
We could even have face masks on. No one would know.
No, they wouldn't.
Next time we'll be face masking it.
Exactly. I like that multitasking.
So you were saying, Kathleen, a little bit about like the infertility and all that craze going on right now.
Yes.
So I think that's like a perfect kind of wrap up topic is going into like the moon and how so many women are starting to recognize that their cycles, their menstrual cycles are related to the moon, right? 28 days and all of that. So can you talk a little bit about that? Just
Yes.
how maybe someone who has, like for me, I can't seem to cycle regularly. And so I'm learning more about the moon and sitting outside in the moonlight and, you know, all that. So whatever you can kind of enlighten us women with, or maybe some important things that make sure we're like implementing during our cycles, whatever thoughts you got.
You got it. Well, I'll tell you, the first thing that I think of is tying it back to nature. And traditionally, when women were more tribal and they lived together, I mean, there's no doubt we've heard the stories, women more likely cycled together. It was probably survival. You know, they needed to have the women fertile at the same time, and men were going off to battle. They were catching food. Maybe they weren't coming back. So they were dwindling. They
That's
needed to make
true.
sure.
I never
So
thought of that
There was a lot of that going on, but I'll tell you what I do, because I kind of have made it my passion that I like to share rejuvenation without medication, you know? And I'm not saying that I'm against hormone replacement, which seems to be I call it the functional medicine. You know, everyone's becoming an annuity to a compound pharmacist. And listen, I'm in my late 50s, you know, late 50s. I mean, I'm just saying, I've been there, I've done it. But when you know and you learn that actually shuts down your own feedback loop, it doesn't make sense to me to do it statically, you know, repeatedly. It tells your body, why should you make it? But then, you know, there's some really great arguments about the fact that really when hormones decline, that's nature's way of taking you out. So none of us really want to be taken out. And that's a
We're
great,
putting up a good fight.
yeah. And so there's a kind of a catch-22. Well, I started studying, one of my mentors is the dean of the California College of Natural Medicine and a naturopath herself, Dr. Teresa Dale. And I went out to California and trained with her. So I am one of her neuroendocrine and anti-aging regulation practitioners. So if women come to see me and they're starting to have hormonal issues, what am I going to do? I'm going to talk to them about circadian rhythm. And I'm going to explain to them why this is their problem. We live in a very Band-Aid society. A lot of people just say, and so if I get the inkling that they're more the type that I just really want to go, I want someone to write me a script for the hormones and then I want to be done. Well, what's going to happen is they're going to go and then they'll get a script and they'll feel better for maybe 6 months, 3 to 6 months. And then they're going to have the same problem because the body's kind of become, the receptors have gotten, they're not receptive and they get out of balance. And the balance that the body clock does gets out of sync. Mm-hmm. So I give women a moon calendar and I teach them how to, now I used to have to give it to them on a paper, but now I just say, Google your moon calendar.
Google the moon.
And I use herbs. I use that lifestyle stuff that I taught you today. Yep. And then I use herbs and I use homeopathics to help signal what the body should be doing in an ideally functioning cycling woman. And what we have found is, for me to prove this to women, since I use homeopathics, I honestly, I can say to people, if everyone's always said, well, I don't have the money, because the best test to determine all this is saliva, but sometimes I'll say, go get whatever you can get covered. I mean, I can help you,
Sometimes
but
they're expensive. Like I've done the Dutch testing and that's a couple $100.
I have the Dutch testing, and at our office we have that.
Very informative, but expensive for a lot of women.
But what's to diagnose? Is anybody ever balanced? And do you think anyone comes
Everyone's
back?
off.
Everyone's low, unless they're estrogen dominant. But in the other protective ones, you know, testosterone, progesterone,
the test is telling you what you know. Your hormones are off.
So that's why I like my protocol, because really I think it's women can do it for, I get them like a 3-month it's not going to fix in 3 months. Say 3 months, do the homeopathics and herbal and lifestyle things, and then come back and we will see you in healthy ranges. And we really do. So sometimes I don't need to test you because what I do, I'm not really giving you hormones. Now, I have a little something up my sleeve that it's like been in my head that I've been thinking about using a little bit of physiologic hormone at the peak days, like a spike. And I'm testing it on myself. So we'll see how that goes. But, I don't think it makes sense to statically dose. I mean, if we know that the female cycle, we know what the female cycle looks like. The estrogen peaks, on day, it's like 11 to 14, and then the progesterone's day 17, and the testosterone's sort of in there in between. Then we need to follow that. That's what it would normally do. And if we can encourage that by herbs that we take or a little bit of cream, and then maybe the body will figure it out. It seems to work for a lot of women, to follow that. But the moon is there as a guide.
Is the guide.
And a lot of women that after they've stopped having cycles or postmenopausal, we still follow the moon as if, this is when you would be ovulating. Okay. And it kind of makes them feel like they're back in sync again. So it works good.
Okay. Good tips.
Yeah. I think there's something really therapeutic about being in the moonlight. I've read like the sayings that say like the sun sees my body, but the moon sees my soul. And I really feel that, being out there
Well, it is the magnetism. Okay. It's what moves the tides. So we need the sun, but we need the moonlight. Exactly right. We need the moonlight. And I think what you're saying is you're realizing that when you stop and look up, there's a lot going up out there.
Yeah.
And very few people look up anymore. They're too busy.
They don't.
Well, because what are they doing?
Looking down at their phone.
Right.
Looking down at their blue light.
Exactly. So, yeah, it's important to reconnect with nature. And a lot of the stuff that I share with people, it's free. It's just about creating your own rituals. I like what you were doing with the moon.
Yeah, I think it's great because I was reading something yesterday about the super blood wolf moon or whatever. And, we all kind of know the science behind the moon and the tides, right? Like that's like a known fact. You learn it in school that the moon comes and the tides come and it works together. But then we forget that we're also made up of water.
70%.
We're made up of water. And so how naive is it for us to think that we're not impacted just as much as the tides in the ocean from the moon?
You know what they say in emergency rooms, they're very high at full moon time.
People get a little crazy.
And in yoga, we don't practice like Ashtanga yoga. We don't do Ashtanga yoga during the new moon. It's rest. It's
rest.
Repair, which that is when you would be having your period. See, the new moon is when you would be menstruating, and then you build up the levels to the full moon, and then right after that peak, and the little dance of a peak, then the estrogen starts to tumble, but the progesterone is peaks, and then they both kind of move, and then you move towards another new moon.
So during like the new moon, so for us women, to kind of find our own rhythm. So during the new moon, it's kind of a phase of our life where we need to be calm, collected, maybe not schedule a bunch of things in that time, like those couple days of a new moon, like have our schedule clear, maybe self-care, more baths, more quiet time.
I think that's a brilliant idea.
And then during a full moon, that's like when our energies are high, right? That's why they say the emergency rooms are full of crazy people. It's like we feel ourselves buzzing, right? Like we're all like anxious and we want to be out and about. So maybe schedule your social times those nights, go out with the girlfriends and maybe have a date night when you're feeling more frisky. And
that's usually when women were ovulating.
Right. And that goes right back to what you were saying, is we should be having our period during the new moon and all frisky and ready to ride.
Right.
Ready to ride.
I don't, because of the light cycles that we have, keep in mind, no matter what we do, we're in a lit world. You look at Google Earth and you see it. There's certain cities that have outlawed night lights, like Tucson, Arizona. My sister was living out there, and it's amazing the difference. There's no street lamps, and they want it to be dark. I think it's brilliant.
It is, because the light pollution blocks all the stars and
I know, and it's beautiful
moon.
to see the stars out there.
Yes.
So those are the things that I think we want to do is reconnect.
Yeah. Okay, so I have one last question, then Kathleen, think of any last questions you have. So I've been learning a lot about Chinese medicine and how they say that different organs relate to different time frames in our bodies. So if you're waking up at certain times of the night, maybe like if you're always waking up, I think it's like 2 o'clock is like the lungs, or 3
The liver, 1 to 3 is liver.
1 to 3 is liver.
Yeah.
So do you follow a little bit of that
do.
in your practice? Like when you're asking people, how's your sleep? And they're telling you, I wake up at 4 o'clock religiously every night.
I tell them exactly. I look at the chart. With Dr. Dale, the training that I did, I pull it all together. Ayurvedic and 5-element Chinese healing, you can see the similarities. It's actually, I'll take it another step. And it's something I'd love to share with you guys, is the whole concept of syncretism. And syncretism is the fact that we're all arguing, but really we're all talking about the same thing worldwide. And the 5-element, the earth, wood, air, water, as well as the doshas of Ayurveda, you can see the similarities. So absolutely. And when the actual little hormone program hormone rejuvenation and anti-aging program I help women do, it actually is based on the 5-element clock. So we actually have 5-element remedies. So if certain things come back on your saliva test that are low, we can get an idea, well, she's off in the liver clock, which actually is a huge one that everyone is. And why do you think that is? It's not just drinking. First thing everyone always thinks, no, the liver is where we conjugate our hormones. Mm-hmm. It's where we make 75% of our thyroid hormone.
Wow.
And our sex hormones are conjugated in the liver. So if the liver is congested, and whether it be substances or emotions like anger,
anger's in the liver,
unrequited anger, that they haven't dealt with, then we see low hormone production or whatever. So we might use a remedy to help, and then we'll suggest that they do some journaling or something. So yes, I use the Chinese and I use the Ayurveda. I can tell when someone's a Vata or a Pitta or they're Kapha or they're out of balance. So I like to for me, it's this type of healing is what I think we innately know we're supposed to be doing. Right. And the power of syncretism is that we learn that, and that we sort of have this in our hearts. The whole world knows the Mother Nature's ways, the natural way to heal. And I think we're remembering it now.
Well, we are. And I think it started with technology on such a giant scale, with giant room-sized computers. Mm-hmm. And then we were like, ooh, let's make this better. This makes life easier. And it just snowballed into this technology world. And now we're like, oh, crap, it's all technology and no nature. And so now we're coming to a rude awakening, like you said.
I think you've hit the nail on the head there, Kathleen, for sure.
Gotta get back to it.
Well, we're going to have a choice.
Yes.
We have a choice. Do we want to move? And I'll give you an example. Do we want to move more what I would call into an ascension type of path, which means back to nature? Or do we want to move into a mechanistic, mechanical AI, become more machine? The choice is ours, and this is it. And
it's wild too, because they say, if you want to basically continue in society and be a success or be good at anything, then you're going to have to embrace the technology that keeps coming out. But what keeps coming out is just, slowly killing us. So
right, and possibly keeping us from the frequencies that we're supposed to get, so that we can be in more sync with the Creator and the creation.
Enlightenment.
And yeah. So that's a really, really interesting subject. And as we see, the more you get into what's really part of natural healing, the more you're drawn to wanting to understand why we're here. And like my Qigong teacher says, Paige, remember why you came.
Oh.
And, because you can get so caught up in all this stuff, and whether you got this and you're wearing this and everyone's wearing this or everyone's doing this or none of this, and then maybe we should just be and remember why we came. And why we came is not to learn how to use the latest tech gadget or finish the spreadsheet or learn how to do a PowerPoint.
Or get a contact lens that will show us what our phones will show us.
Right. But it's
or be the best at Candy Crush.
Ultimate goals.
That is not why we're here.
I don't know what it is, too, Like I said, I'm just a little piece a bit older than you girls, but I'm at that point where I'm really, really interested in more esoteric things the bigger picture, and dissolving those illusions about, why we're here and what's really important in life. And I do think that less is more when we get to health, and we can see these all tying together.
Yeah.
That is such a great closing line. Remember why you're here.
I love it.
Beautiful.
So you want to wrap up, Kathleen, with our rapid fire questions?
Oh,
Yeah,
that
do you
scares
wanna-
me. I've never had a rapid fire.
We are so excited for
Who
this.
knows what comes out of my mouth?
We picked pretty nice questions. We were, first episode. Next one, we won't be so nice, though.
Yeah, we had to be a little conservative on this first interview with you, Paige. So are you ready?
Okay.
Okay, so first one. Do you watch The Bachelor?
No.
No. I don't. Okay. What is your star sign?
Scorpio.
Scorpio.
But I have a Libra moon.
Ooh.
And an Aries rising. And these are the things that are really cool and important and tying into that syncretism, which I'll tell you guys about.
Okay, good. We do want to dive into that in a future episode. We're both
Yes.
astrology nerds, too.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
The
Kathleen, what
true
do you got?
science.
Yeah, it is.
Yes, it is.
Okay, what do you got, Kathleen? Give us a
Oh,
rapid
sorry.
fire.
I was having you do them all. Where are we? Oh, what is your next certification going to be?
Oh, my gosh. Oh, wow. You know what? I would say probably my astrotheology work.
Okay.
Yep.
That's a good one.
Super interesting.
And I'd like to share that with you.
I love
That
it.
would be amazing. Yes. Can we have you on once a month?
It might actually work out.
That would be
because it's so
beautiful.
close, and I really enjoy this kind of a platform that you guys have. It's very comfortable, and I think that we all just need to share information in a way that people can absorb it.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's fun, right? Okay, craziest thing you carry in your purse?
She has that laugh.
Oh my gosh! Oh gosh! Everyone laughs at me. I carry my own little salt shaker.
Oh,
perfect.
brilliant.
I do, because I like to get my healthy salt when I go to stores.
Yeah, you
I
gotta
know.
have the
You
healthy
can't
stuff.
have.
Actually, if we looked in my purse right now, it would really be crazy, because I'm still carrying around this huge thing. Because, as you know, I went to Thailand for a month,
Yeah.
and then I went to Austria, and so it's like 25 pounds. There could be some really crazy stuff. In
Do you
there.
see my purse over there? It's the same purse I bought the last day in Europe because I needed to have a big bag to fit everything to carry on the
that's
plane.
exactly what I did, right?
And it's been 3 months and I still have the same big purse and it weighs like 50 pounds.
We'll have to compare after
You
the
guys
show.
are going to have to get chiropractically adjusted just because of your bags.
I've been going to the chiropractor for my health and I carry the person and I'm like, what are you doing? Leave it in the car. You don't want to get judged by the chiropractor.
It's so
gonna
true.
yell at you.
Oh, it is so true. And when you go on trips, it's really great to wear those little fanny packs.
Little
here.
fanny packs.
That was a good point. though.
Downsize. And I know you have a good one. What's the last one?
True or false? We landed on the moon.
False.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
We have a lot to talk about.
Yes.
We touched on some great things. Hopefully you guys all got some great tips and tricks you can implement into your life for free. Right. And if you're interested in working with Paige, she's available through phone consult and Skype. She's going to be on the go a lot. So that might be her new
Yeah, that's
way.
my goal, is to make myself more techie.
Yes.
Enough so that I can be more mobile, because I
Yeah,
want to
that
be.
fine line.
Yeah, I want to have less is more. I want to be in the mountains. My son's in Lake Tahoe, and
Yeah.
I'm going out there for the third time. And
Yay.
I love it.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
it's
if you're not
beautiful out
local to beautiful Dunedin, Paige is still available for you. We'll link her website in the show notes. We'll link a lot of her information, and we're looking at maybe having her on more often.
Yes.
So
Thanks, girls.
thank you so
Thank you
much.
for coming. This was awesome.
We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
So closing line.
So whether you're cleansing or celebrating, cheers!
Thank you for listening to the Wheatgrass and Champagne podcast. If you loved today's episode, make sure to subscribe and leave a 5-star review. Join the Wheatgrass and Champagne community on Instagram, Facebook, and wheatgrassandchampagne.com. Details from this episode can be found in the show notes below. Tune in next Wednesday as we continue to seek the perfect balance between indulging and upgrading. Until then, cheers.